Another note, another comment that I received, and this is kind of along the same line. So we were touching on Antichrist and what an Antichrist does and how an Antichrist operates in our world, in our history. We had a pretty awful, probably considered probably one of the most awful individuals to ever take breath. You know who I'm talking about? Little guy, funny little mustache. I received this comment. Ed, I hear you, but how would we have defeated Hitler if we hadn't used bullets like he had to start the war? Okay. So this was a video I did a couple of days ago about becoming the monster that you're fighting. We can't become the monster that we're wrestling with. We should not become the monster that we despise. Right? And I've shared that message hundreds of times, I think, by now. But the bottom line is, okay, I don't like that guy. I want to defeat that guy. He's bringing in bad policy. He's doing horrible things. We need to bring him down. So to do that, I'm going to be like him. I'm going to become like him. He does evil, I'll do evil. He does harm, I'll do harm. And listen, I understand like this comment. I get this comment. It makes a lot of sense to me. It probably makes a lot of sense to you. Wait a second. How is it that we would have defeated Germany during the between 1939 and 1945? How is it that we would have stopped him if we didn't use the same tactics? There's lots to be said about this, because on the surface, this is, yeah, you're right. But the truth is, we had to fight that war because we didn't do work to keep him from becoming the monster that he ultimately became. We didn't throw embargoes at them when they were building up their military. We didn't throw tariffs on them. We didn't look at crippling their economy in order to keep them from being able to put together this war machine. We didn't do the stuff that we would do in the world today. The people of Germany, and I'm not trying to blame anybody here, but he went to jail. He went to jail after a failed coup, and they let him out early. Why? Why did you let him out early? Why not keep him there? When he was out, he was told he couldn't speak. He wasn't allowed to speak at political rallies. He couldn't speak in public. That didn't last very long. They let him do that stuff. Like, there's many things in this situation. Like when we look at the Second World War, here in 1939 to 1945, the conflict between the Axis and the Allies, the conflict between Nazi Germany, Great Britain, France, Italy, the Commonwealth of England. When we look at that war at that time, I would say, sure, it had to be fought, for sure. But that war is a testament to our failure. It's a testament to how we failed to keep a monster from growing larger and larger and larger and larger and larger until we had to put it down. Because, as the author of that comment says, we had to use their means. We did. How many of our young people suffered because we had to do that kind of thing? How many of them were killed? How many people lost their lives? How many of them, well, even though they lived, lost everything when they came home? They were not the same person. How many of them suffered from mental health issues, from injuries that were difficult to heal? How many families grieved and mourned? Yeah, at that time, I would say we probably had to fight we had to fight that war. Our young people suffered. Our young people, in some cases, had to become monsters because our leadership didn't do the job they were supposed to do. And again, historically, you can look at it. And I know, listen, hindsight's 2020. I don't know what it would have been like to have been a leader in the 1920s or the 1930s. I'm not saying this to cast blame. I'm saying it because, as we were talking about being introspective, I shouldn't just look at the Second World War and say, okay, that's how you take down a tyrant. That's how you take down an authoritarian. I look at the Second World War and say, that's the last ditch effort to taking down an authoritarian, a tyrant, a dictator, a monster. It isn't a message. It isn't a lesson for us on how to do it properly, how to do it effectively. No, we should look at the existing, the 2.5 decades before the beginning of the war and say, okay, what can we learn about the creation of a monster? What can we learn about the rising of a monster? What can we learn about putting a leash on a monster? And how do we do it? If we're looking at that period and say, well, I guess that's what we had to do because we had to deal with a monster. No. Yes, at that point, that's what was needed. But if that's all we see, that's how you deal with it, then we've lost. We've not been introspective. What else could we have done before we got to that point? And let's learn from that. Let's learn from that so that we don't have to turn our young people into monsters in order to defeat one. Let's look at that and say, okay, mission was accomplished. How could we have operated in a way that we could have accomplished the same thing without the barbarity, without the violence, without the killing? How could we have gotten to that place earlier, more effectively, without the loss, without the grief, without the suffering? We look back on history and we can see, we can take it and we can say, well, I guess that's how to do it because that's how they did it. That's a shallow dive. That's a shallow dive into the lesson that's being offered. Go deep. Go real deep. So again, how could we have defeated Hitler without using bullets? How could we have defeated that little fellow with the funny little mustache without using bullets like he was using bullets, without using bombs like he was using bombs, without killing like he was killing? How could we have done it? Well, by that point, couldn't have. By the time the war began, you couldn't have. There was no other path to defeating him and his followers. But what about beforehand? What's the message in there? What's the lesson in there? What can we learn in there? Let's be introspective and let's rip history apart. Again, same in the Bible. We can look at the Bible and we can find these stories in the Bible where this guy has to do this horrible thing or this person has to do this awful thing. Sure, but what led to that moment? The story, thankfully, this biblical stories, especially those ones about war. If you look at the book of Judges, or if you look at Joshua's book, if you look at some of the Old Testament with the kings, you can see this preamble that leads to that place. Right? You see this preamble that leads to that place, and we're supposed to learn from it all. So let's learn from it all. Don't take the easy way out by saying, well, to defeat a monster, you got to be a monster. It's too easy. It's too easy. Open it up. Go deep. Go deep. Find the lesson. Apply the story. Apply the knowledge. See where we were successful. See where we failed. Be willing to think deeply. Amen.